My name is Marcus Aurelius, and even though centuries have passed since I sat upon the throne of Rome, I recognize that the essence of human suffering remains unchanged. Today, I speak to you about the effects of social anxiety after narcissistic abuse and whether healing is possible in the aftermath of such trauma. This topic is of great importance in understanding the complexity of human nature and our relentless struggle to liberate our souls. The teachings of Stoicism, especially in such situations, can help us find inner peace and show us how to regain our spiritual balance after trauma. Imagine being raised by narcissistic parents who were constantly critical, judgmental, and always ready to pounce on you whenever they had the opportunity. These parents scrutinized your every action, never missing a chance to point out your perceived flaws or inadequacies. The feeling of walking on eggshells became your norm as you lived in a state of hypervigilance, always anticipating the next attack. Whenever they saw you, they did not hesitate to criticize or blame, and this relentless judgment led to significant social anxiety during your childhood. You learned to fear being seen, to dread the spotlight because it almost always meant a new wave of criticism, a new wound to carry. Growing up in such an environment breeds a deep-seated fear of being judged, a fear that runs through every aspect of your life. Over time, this fear becomes a deeply embedded part of one's identity, shaping how you interact with others, how you view yourself, and how you move through the world. It is as if a constant shadow follows you, whispering that you are not enough, that you must hide to avoid further hurt. This fear becomes the filter through which you see every social interaction, expecting judgment, expecting to be attacked. If you already had social anxiety and then entered into a narcissistically abusive relationship, this anxiety would only worsen. The cycle of fear, judgment, and emotional pain would reinforce the belief that being yourself, being visible, was inherently dangerous. You would retreat further into yourself, building higher walls to protect against the constant bombardment of criticism and manipulation. Alternatively, if you never had social anxiety before but became involved in a narcissistic relationship where you were subjected to constant criticism, blame, and judgment, developing this anxiety would be inevitable. The relationship would slowly erode your sense of self-worth, convincing you that you were always at fault, that you were never good enough. Each interaction would further imprint the idea that being seen was unsafe, that vulnerability would always be met with harm. The wounds inflicted by narcissistic abuse do not heal easily. They become scars that alter your perception of the world and your place in it. You begin to internalize the abuse, believing that the criticisms were justified, that you truly were flawed and unworthy. Social anxiety becomes not just a fear, but an identity, a deeply ingrained belief that you must avoid others to stay safe, that hiding is the only way to protect yourself from further harm. The first scenario is that you already have social anxiety, which may have lessened as you matured, but a narcissistic relationship exacerbates it once again. Alternatively, you never experienced social anxiety until you entered such a relationship, and as a result, you find yourself experiencing the same environment and conditions that typically lead to social anxiety, even for someone who never experienced it before. The teachings of Stoicism remind us of an essential truth. We have control over our minds. To navigate life with resilience, we must learn to direct our mental states and reactions, defending ourselves from the judgments and criticisms of others. Social anxiety is rooted in the fear of being seen. It is an aversion to one's own visibility. For someone who has experienced narcissistic abuse, being seen may be associated with danger, with risk, and with scenarios involving high conflict and negative emotional consequences. Over time, this fear becomes a part of your identity, and you begin to see yourself as someone who avoids crowds and dislikes social interactions. However, this is not who you truly are. It is the residue of your past experiences. Unfortunately, these experiences can create a narrative that perpetuates your anxiety, reinforcing the belief that being seen or being around people is inherently risky, thus shaping a worldview filtered through this anxiety. Approaching this situation through the lens of Stoicism can lead to liberation. You have power over your mind, not external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. These words are a guiding light for overcoming social anxiety. The key to addressing social anxiety does not lie in diagnosing the narcissist or trying to understand them. It lies in controlling your own thoughts, emotions, and actions. The narcissist may have hurt you. They may have woven an intricate web of manipulation and illusion to keep you captive, but they do not hold the keys to your freedom. Those keys lie within you. By taking control of your perception and your response, you can free yourself from these illusions. It is common for those who have experienced narcissistic abuse to engage in self-isolation afterward. While isolating oneself may seem like a temporary relief for someone struggling with social anxiety, in the long term, it only leads to loneliness and heightened negative emotions. Humans are inherently social creatures, and the lack of social contact leads to an increase in negative emotional states. Research and literature on this subject show that prolonged periods without human interaction raise negative emotionality, lower the threshold for negative emotional triggers, and amplify the emotions themselves. One of the fundamental reasons for increased social anxiety and depression is the sense of disconnection and alienation from other people. Stoicism can once again come to our aid. Humans have evolved to thrive in social bonds, and the lack of these connections goes against our very nature. If the damage was inflicted in the context of a relationship, it is likely that healing, too, must happen within the context of relationships. This does not mean that we must always assume that being around people will be effortless, or that they will always be a source of joy, comfort, and compassion. Such expectations would be unrealistic. However, as adults, we must use our discernment, wisdom, and reason to establish safe and meaningful bonds with people whose values align with ours. One of the core teachings of Stoicism, live in accordance with nature, is of great importance here. Human beings are social creatures by nature, and prolonged loneliness can disturb one's mental balance. Completely cutting ourselves off from others goes against the Stoic principle of living in harmony with nature. As Emperor of Rome, I often faced loneliness myself, amidst treacherous generals, self-serving advisors, and even friends whose loyalty I doubted. Yet, Stoicism helped me find inner peace during these difficult times. By freeing myself from the illusions others imposed upon me and building my own inner citadel, I was able to achieve spiritual balance. The inner citadel is a concept frequently emphasized in Stoic thought. It is the invincible fortress of the mind that stands resilient against what lies beyond our control. After traumatic experiences such as narcissistic abuse, constructing this inner citadel becomes a vital step in regaining spiritual balance. This citadel is a sanctuary where we can preserve our inner tranquility regardless of the words or actions of others. This is one of the most powerful aspects of Stoic teachings, preserving our mental freedom independent of the chaos of the external world. Today, I encourage you to build your own inner citadel and free yourself from the illusions that have held you captive. Strengthen your mind, nourish your values, and find the courage to reconnect with others. It may be difficult, especially if past trauma has made the idea of connecting with people intimidating. However, this is a necessary step in the path to healing your soul. Stoicism teaches us not just to avoid pain, but to understand it and make peace with it. As Epictetus once said, It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of their significance. The root of social anxiety often lies in the traumatic experiences of the past. However, we cannot change what has happened. We can only choose how we respond in the present. Reclaim your power and do not let others define you. Even if others have tried to control you, never forget that you are the author of your own story. Redefine yourself, stand in your strength, and live according to your values. With each passing day, make yourself stronger, more resilient, and freer. Stoic wisdom also teaches us that the obstacle is the way. The challenges we face are not hindrances, but opportunities for growth and transformation. Narcissistic abuse and social anxiety are challenges that, instead of stopping us, offer us a path to growth. After experiencing such traumatic events, how we choose to use those experiences is entirely up to us. These obstacles have the potential to make us more resilient, wiser, and stronger. Free yourself from the chains of the past and make a new beginning. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to become a better version of myself? This is the path of Stoicism, the path of resilience, strength, and true freedom. Make a commitment today to invest in yourself, to live a meaningful and fulfilling life in alignment with your values. Prove to yourself that it is possible to build meaningful connections, to trust, and to experience love again. This is the road to true freedom, the road to peace, virtue, and a life imbued with Stoic wisdom. Stoic philosophy teaches us how to find inner peace and resilience in the face of life's inevitable pains. Inner peace is not achieved solely by becoming indifferent to external events, but by making peace with them. This requires daily practice, self-reflection, and an understanding of our mental responses. After a narcissistic relationship, applying Stoic principles to regain your spiritual balance will help you regain your self-confidence and intrinsic worth. One of the powerful tenets of Stoicism is the understanding that happiness depends on our inner state, not on external circumstances. This core principle of Stoicism can serve as our greatest support when coping with challenges like social anxiety and narcissistic abuse. Build a fortress in your mind and guard it against the chaos and manipulation that the outside world may bring. Ultimately, true peace and happiness are constructed solely in your own mind. If we were to delve deeper into the Stoic approach to overcoming social anxiety after narcissistic abuse, we would see that one of the fundamental lessons is the understanding and acceptance of impermanence. Everything that we experience, whether joy or suffering, is transient. The narcissist's hold on your life is not eternal. It is as temporary as any storm. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, often reflected upon the fleeting nature of human life and experiences, reminding us that time is like a river made up of events which happen, and its current is strong. No sooner does anything appear than it is swept away, and another comes in its place, and will be swept away too. In dealing with the aftermath of a narcissistic relationship, remember that all the pain, betrayal, and confusion are part of that transient river of events. They do not define your essence. What defines you is how you respond to these experiences. You may not be able to control what happened in the past, but you have complete control over how you interpret it, learn from it, and use it to build your future. This acceptance of impermanence can be profoundly liberating. It frees you from the false belief that you are forever bound by the chains of the past. Moreover, a significant part of Stoic healing involves the concept of the view from above. Imagine yourself looking down at your life from a great height, seeing all your experiences, both joyful and painful, as small parts of a much greater whole. By doing this, you put the narcissistic abuse and the resulting social anxiety in perspective. From the vantage point of the universe, these experiences, though impactful, are not the entirety of your existence. You are more than the pain inflicted upon you. You are a complete being, capable of growth, capable of joy, and most importantly, capable of finding peace within yourself. When social anxiety tells you to retreat, to hide, to avoid being seen, remember that this is merely a conditioned response, not an inherent truth. The real truth is that you are worthy of love and connection, just as you are. The fear that grips you is a shadow of past traumas, a whisper from a time when your safety genuinely depended on avoiding judgment or scrutiny. But now, as a person seeking to live in accordance with nature, you recognize that your true safety lies in the unshakable citadel of your mind. You do not need to seek validation from those who tried to manipulate you. You do not need to justify your worth to those who sought to diminish you. The philosopher Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Social anxiety thrives on imagined fears, on the idea that others are constantly judging, constantly critical, and constantly against us. But the reality is often far less daunting. Most people are far more preoccupied with their own lives, their own struggles, and their own desires than they are with judging us. Understanding this can help diminish the power that social anxiety holds over us. By choosing to act despite the fear, by choosing to be seen, to connect, to share ourselves with others, we begin to dismantle the false beliefs that have kept us isolated. Imagine a life where you are no longer held captive by the fear of being judged, where you are free to express yourself without the burden of needing approval. Such a life is possible when you live in accordance with Stoic principles. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to meet anyone else's standards. Your value is inherent, unchanging, and unaffected by the whims of others. Every time you choose to step out of isolation, every time you choose to connect, you are taking a step toward building that life. Narcissistic abuse might have caused you to doubt your worth, but Stoicism reminds you that your worth is intrinsic. No one can diminish it without your consent. The judgment of a narcissist reflects their inner turmoil, not your value. In fact, the more you embrace your authentic self, the more you nurture your inner virtues of wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice, the less power anyone else's opinion will have over you. You will be able to move through the world with grace and resilience, unburdened by the need for external validation. To rebuild connections with others, start small. Find one person whom you trust, a friend, a family member, or even a support group, and practice being open. Allow yourself to be vulnerable, not with the expectation of perfect outcomes, but with the understanding that human relationships are inherently imperfect. Accept that there will be moments of discomfort, moments of misunderstanding, but also moments of profound connection, warmth, and joy. These moments are what make life meaningful, and they are worth the risk. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what is within our control, our actions, our thoughts, and our choices. It teaches us to release what lies beyond our control, the opinions of others, the actions of those who have hurt us, and the circumstances of the past. By living in accordance with these teachings, we can overcome the fear that holds us back, rebuild our relationships, and find a deeper, more lasting sense of peace. The path ahead may not be easy, but it is worth taking. It is the path of freedom, of resilience, and of true inner strength. Build your inner citadel, embrace your intrinsic worth, and move forward, one step at a time, towards a life of courage, virtue, and unshakable peace. This is the Stoic way, and it is your way to true liberation.